Good morning, everybody. You are tuned to Computers 2K now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Amnon, your host for the next couple of hours, along with Spence.
How much is a couple hours worth?
2. That's 2.
2?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. I just picked my microphone up and my whole stand came out. Oh, well.
Yeah, well,
good morning.
You can go ahead and fix it. And
Oh,
Gal
it's
is
fixed.
here.
It's fixed.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for being so red.
And you use a
Without
filter
my
and
regular glasses, so everything's reflecting. So
just adjust your camera so you take all the red out.
No.
I can try that. I don't know if it'll work. It is a Logitech. I don't know if it can do that.
You can go
Nah,
over the color,
it's
color
fine.
intensity.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. He's an
I'll say.
outdoors
But-
guy.
But
That's
Gal,
what it
the
is.
good news is you don't look like a raccoon. So
Our number is 919-518-9773. Computers 2K Voice on Skype. And today's show is made possible by Emacs software, by dudenit.com, and is sponsored by Tom Sinclair of Live Streaming Gear. So what's happening? It's been kind of a slow computer news week. I can't think off the top of my head of anything that happened. There was not much out there. But hey, that's some weeks is like this, some weeks it's more.
That's our show for today.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything
Yeah.
interesting.
It's-
I'm working on a weird issue that
Uh-oh.
I have zero idea what. Our friend Sarid,
Yeah.
his network is practically down, and I have no idea why.
And it's not the
Like,
provider.
IP is working, DNS isn't working. Our old joke of it's always DNS. There's something to do with DNS resolution there. The thing is that the local DNS that we've set up works, and other Linux machines, there are 2 Linux machines on his network. They get the DNS resolution working, and the Windows machine, for some reason, do not. And it's not something to do with the DNS server is running as a container, as a virtual, as a containerized service on one of the servers, and it has nothing to do with network routing, because the Linux server, the other one, the one that is a completely separate machine, gets everything resolved properly. So right after the show, I'm going to dive in there and try to figure out what's going on, because everything was working up until last week. And sometimes during this week, the beginning of the week or something like that, or maybe just before the last weekend, just things stopped working. And we can't figure that one out.
Did you, and you changed, I'm assuming you changed DNSs. You tried different
Right now, we've set it so he's using only an external DNS, so everything internal doesn't work properly. But he says even with the external DNS, get intermittent disconnections. So I don't know what's going on there, and it's definitely not an IP issue because the everything that has to do with IP routing seems to work properly, or at least it's not anything IP outside of the world, outside of the LAN, maybe on the LAN, but
and well, I don't know. I'm
yeah,
using. I always use the local that I get, like my gateway as the DNS and Google.
Right. So that's part of the problem. That was part of the initial problem. That when that's how the DHCP is set up for everything. Just instead of the local router, there's a local DNS server. There's a server. There's a DNS dedicated DNS server running inside the network, and it is doing all of the resolving for outside. And at the beginning, we put the internal DNS and an external DNS as a backup. And that seemed to be working for a while. And that was actually working pretty well. It resolved a lot of issues. But then suddenly, right, it worked like for a week after I set up the new DNS server. And after a week or so, Sarid is telling me that things have completely stopped to screech, and it's maddening because home automation is based on it. Internal media server, internal storage, that's the most critical part. The local password vault and the local storage. Yeah, he runs a Nextcloud instance, and that has like a few terabytes of data, and the entire family is using that, and suddenly that's not accessible, right? And that drives everyone, not only him, that drives everyone mad at home. He has kids outside, living outside of home, college, work, and they're using that storage, right? He convinced them at the beginning to move their storage hosting, right, to do it in home instead of doing it in stuff like Box or Google Drive or something like that. But now with that not working, right, it is maddening. It is so, yeah.
So it's definitely DNS.
Running a production system in home can be a work.
So if you go to the IP address, I'm assuming that everything is working if you are addressing it instead of going locally to a machine as an IP versus a name.
IP outside the world, internet, IP.
How about internal?
Perfectly. Internally, everything works except reaching the DNS server from Windows machines.
And the Windows machine is looking at the DNS as an IP address, obviously.
Of course. Yeah.
And
yes, so weird. So yeah, I'm gonna go dive in with the sniffer, try to see what happens on the IP level, see if there's any blockage. Maybe we didn't see anything on the Windows firewall, but maybe that wouldn't explain why multiple machines aren't working, right? Because it happens from multiple Windows machines that you don't get. And also the cell phones don't seem to be accessing the DNS server properly. So it's something to do with internal either IP routing or something else. I don't know yet, right? That's the thing. I'm gonna need to look at the details.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting, very frustrating. And and I guess for Sarid, more than frustrating, it is also he he relies on me on this situation because
Well.
the Linux world is not something that it's something that I sold him on and I helped him set up and I manage most of it. I'm not living in his home, so I'm not experiencing the
Yeah.
hardship, right? And yet,
I guess you have to move in for a few days. Uh-oh. Now Gal is frozen. Interesting.
and yesterday I wasn't available the entire day, so
Gal, you just froze for about 30 seconds.
I just froze.
Yeah, you were frozen. Yep.
Yep. And we lost Spence earlier, so I don't know what's going on.
Interesting.
But I'm guessing on Spence and it's some sort of connection, not has nothing
Yeah,
to
with
do
him.
your
Yeah, this
connection.
was just like you were frozen. And I can't help but wondering if it's actually on my side. But we're still getting out.
Telling you the DNS, it's
Yeah, DNS. It's
hearing that we're
DNS.
talking about it. It doesn't want to be the focus.
Yeah.
It's had enough.
No, but this is very interesting that you can't even address it as an IP address.
Yeah.
That's something.
And obviously, after we rebooted the machine where it's hosted, right?
Yeah.
It worked for a while and then it stopped. So it's even if it's something that has to do with the machine, we're not clear of what is happening. So yeah. And the thing is, I have a very similar setup. So everything is working on my end right now and it never fritzed. So
Well, it's obvious
why would it fritz on
if the Linux machines are working, then everything is right. It's a Windows problem.
probably,
Yeah.
but again, what?
Yeah.
Right? So, and why would rebooting the Linux machine release it? Right? Nothing in this situation adds up to a coherent explanation. That's the problem, right? It's not like anything I do, any action I do, the effects, I cannot explain why they are happening. And that's tough. Eventually we'll figure it out, or at least we'll figure out the set of operations we need to do to make it work. But I'm not sure I'll fully understand why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. I always tell people, when it comes to software and technology, it's the fact that it works, right? Nobody knows why it works. Everybody knows how it works, but nobody knows why. And it's the same when something doesn't work.
Yeah, as long as it works. As long as it works.
I can explain, right, the entire theory of how bits of information coming from transistors, right, eventually become color on the screen. But nobody really understands that. Come on.
Nobody cares. You can explain the whole theory behind a hammer, but who cares? I just want to hit a nail. It's yeah. That's I mean, I'm trying. I'm sure. I mean, I had some problems with DNS here, but I don't ever remember.
I've never experienced what we're experiencing right now, and I'm dealing with a lot.
And you know what it's going to turn out to be? Something real stupid.
Of course. We're going to figure out that we, I don't know, connected something to the wrong port or something. But we need to get there.
Yep.
So if I don't talk about it next week, it's because the solution was so embarrassing.
Well, no, I mean, embarrassing is good. That means that it wasn't Windows. It was something that it's so simple. You overlook it.
Maybe, I don't know. Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what we have this week other than that. If you have
We got Spence back.
Hey, Spence.
Yeah, just in the middle of nowhere, Ethernet connection gone. Says you're not connected to the internet. And the rest of my machines are all working, but my network is getting hammered. So I reset all the switches, disconnected everything else, restarted a couple of times, and now I'm back.
If any of our listeners are running a denial of service on
That
Spence,
could be.
please stop it now, please.
Yeah. Weird.
If you have a Kindle, Amazon Kindle E-Readers with built-in 3G will begin to lose the ability to connect to the internet on their own in the US in December.
The Whisper network or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's because 3G. Oh,
Yeah, it's the WhisperNet for it. That's what's so cool about the original Kindles is that they have an independent Ethernet connection and an experimental browser. You could actually use it internationally. I used to take my Kindle with me when I went on a cruise ship because I connect with the 3G connection and actually send email from my Kindle. They don't have the browser anymore, but yeah, free. Didn't
but
cost
I
anything.
would assume that this is because 3G is being shut down.
Yeah, it's because of being shut down
in many places. So Adobe let customers know last week. That's about it says that the 3G, but does that mean you're still going to be able to use it with Wi-Fi?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And people with 3G phones will still be able to use their phone with cellular, but they won't be able to get data network anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know some people are going to be affected because they haven't changed their phone out in a long time.
Yeah. I was talking with Marshall this week, and he was talking in the mountains. There's no where the area where they're at and some family members are. There's no cell reception, and that one place that his son-in-law bought has DSL. But AT&T is trying to phase DSL out. So turns out that even if it's working, when you try it, they will not change the account to somebody else. So I'm coming to your house and you have DSL and I'm buying your house. And I called AT&T and I said, okay, I just bought this house and I want to have the DSL changed to my name. Nope, you don't have DSL. We can't do that.
We can't or we won't.
We won't. We won't. They can, but they won't. That's right.
Wow.
So they're looking, into HughesNet and Starlink, and
I have friends that have a house out in it's called Fleetwood, which is a small town outside of West Jefferson, right off the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a DSL provider, or had one.
Yeah.
And they just brought fiber in there. But before that, they were at the mercy of like 2 megabit DSL, if it worked.
Yeah, that was the situation there.
Yeah, it's and the local wireless provider. A lot of the people that live in West Jefferson have their wireless provider. If they live there, they come to visit. Obviously, they don't. The people who live there have a local wireless provider for their service because you go until recently, you go to downtown West Jefferson with Verizon, there's no service, nothing. I mean, not voice, not text, not nothing. It's better now. They apparently Verizon signed a deal for roaming with somebody, so there actually is some service there now.
All right, Gal.
Yes,
I need your comment about this. Orders for Alien Aurora R12 and R10 gaming PC configurations placed in California, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Vermont, or Washington will not be honored because of power consumption regulations.
What?
And any orders placed that are bound for those states will be canceled. Dell states in a message. The Aurora R12 and R10 are built around the latest generation processors from Intel and AMD. The former featuring 11th generation Core Rocket Lake CPUs, and the latter wielding Ryzen 5000 series chips based on Zen 3. Unfortunately for both Dell and buyers who reside in affected states, the majority of Aurora R12 and R10 configuration consume more power than local regulations allow. There are exceptions, though, depending on the configuration you select. But apparently, I mean, how much
local regulations?
State regulation of how much in a computer CPU.
Really?
Isn't that amazing? I mean,
So
it's fine. You can.
Let's see. I have. Probably not. I need to see. I have my computer hooked up to. So I have an R10, the Ryzen one. We just bought it. It's going with Shai to college. Yeah. So, and wonder if I have a reading on the consumption.
But it's interesting.
I can't see it.
They can't. Now, if he was going to one of those states, that doesn't affect him. But Dell cannot sell it.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand.
That's something else.
Yeah. Wonder how much it is drawing right now, because I did need. So I understand what they're saying about the consumption limits. I think the problem is when most computer manufacturers, when they sell with higher GPUs and stuff like that. One moment.
I mean,
I can't talk about computers in this room. My Alexa keyword is computer. So when
PC.
Whenever manufacturers, they build with a high-end GPU, they put a 750 wattage PSU.
Right, power supply. That's not big time in today's.
No, but Alienware is putting 1,000.
Yeah. Do you know?
I'm guessing that is where the difference is, and that's why. Because the default setup is 500 watt, and only if you upgrade the GPU, right, that's when they say, hey, you should go with the 1,000 one, and they don't have anything in between. So I'm guessing the result of what you're saying right now is that it'll just change, and they'll sell a less powerful PSU, and they'll solve that.
So, but that leads to the question is like, where does this stop? So will they now stop you from buying? They'll determine that all hair dryers have to be less than 1,500 watts.
Look, they did
And
it. They did it with the car manufacturers when they limited what was it? The gas.
Yeah, but technology caught up and fixed that problem. That wasn't fixed by people getting lower horsepower cars. That was fixed by technology providing higher horsepower for less gas. So
I'm guessing.
I'm okay with that with the emissions perspective, but this is a slippery slope. Who decided that this particular thing is going to be why computer gamers?
Oh,
all
who
of a sudden
decided?
now
Who
it's like,
decided? Who decided? I'll tell you, politicians. You know them.
oh, of course.
But let me tell you something else. Gal, we have those servers. How old are they? Probably about 10.
Yeah, but they don't draw more than 350 watts.
Do you know what size power supply is in that server? The HP server?
800, no?
It's 1,080.
Well, I can tell you, mine never draws more than 400 watts.
I understand. But again, you can, if they put 1,000-watt PSU in those Alienware, that doesn't mean that they are drawing 1,000.
Of course not.
See, so that's where the problem is.
So that's the thing. I don't know what first of all, I don't know what the law says, because if the law says, right, if the law is CPU specific, for example, right? I mean, that might be the case, right? That it has nothing to do with the PSUs, but
right.
It is
you can't use more than 0.45 watts. I'm getting an echo again.
I'm hearing choppiness. I'm going to restart my end. Let's see.
Check. No, it's fine. Can you hear me? We can't hear you. Oh.
So it was me. Damn.
It was a California energy bill.
It's something. It's something that has to do with the configuration on voice meter, and it's something probably real simple. But
I think it has to do with the hardware and drivers. That's what.
But anyway, so keep going. You were going about the CPU. So it's CPU.
I mean,
and not.
It might be component related, but Spence looked it up. So what did you find, Spence?
I found that they found that California was upset that gaming consumed 4.1 terawatts in 2016. So they went after. But what about data centers? So data centers don't consume power?
What about Bitcoin miners?
Exactly. So it said California consumed, but they finally started. They claim that happened. They list consoles with taking bulk of the emissions at 66%, desktop computer, that's, consoles at 66%, desktop computers at 31%. So they're upset about that. And the other states, it was a bill that was passed by California, but now it's California, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington that banned the sale of high-end gaming PCs under a new energy bill. He said, as an answer to this, Dell has pulled 7 of their Alienware from these states.
They just have to sell it around, through a middleman somehow, and that'll work.
Probably what they'll do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't ever think this stuff
to pick up your computer.
You just created a black market where people meet you at the border to the state, and they'll open the trunk and here's a black box.
Here's an Alienware.
So it's not only that these machines today, they cost like 30-40% up the markup because of rare scarcity
components
of materials, right? Now they also need to to deal with.
So they're going to have next thing is gamers will have to wear an electronic ankle bracelet that will shock them if they use too much power.
2 of those.
Yeah. So anyway, this is interesting that things like this are happening, and we'll see if it's going to spread. I mean, it's going to be interesting if it's going to spread.
Well, it has to spread because in order to implement, some of these states have energy guidelines for the future that in order to implement them, they're going to have to restrict power. California has not built a new power plant in 30 years. And they haven't built their last nuclear power plants are going to be decommissioned. So there's no way they're going to meet the energy needs. If they want to switch to all electric cars by 2035, for example.
Yeah, but
they don't have enough power to charge switching all the cars that exist in California today over to electric. It doesn't, you have to install at each charging station. This has been studied and proven. Each charging station, each gas station for electric cars has to have enough power that would supply a 40,000 person community just for that each power station. There's no way they're going to have the power. So they're going to have to cut back on something. And then a car ownership will be impossible. You'll be able to rent one. You'll go downtown and you'll swipe your credit card. You'll get in a little 2-seater electric thing. You'll do what you have to do and you'll drop it off somewhere and somebody else will rent it.
That's not a bad idea, though.
No, for urban areas, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
For people who don't, I know a lot of people when I used to work in New York City that didn't own cars. It wasn't practical. But for the Californians, love their cars. I mean, this is like the driving state. Everybody loves their freedom. And if they say, well, you know what? You're going to have to cut back. No more gaming PCs. You can't have a car. You can't have gasoline anymore. It'll be banned. No more gasoline engines. But you have to use an electric car. But oh, by the way, that electric car, that's $100,000, and you don't live in an area where you can charge.
So this is interesting, right? They got legalized marijuana, right?
that's to soften the blow.
This is like the geeks, right? The weirdos at school taking over the nerds.
You're right. Right. Keep everybody happy somehow.
Yeah. We threw out the jocks already, right? They are no longer of interest. They are the outcasts for a long time, since the late 80s. Now the nerds are out. Bring on the weirdos. Interesting, very interesting.
There's a comment in the article here that someone says that the author of the article couldn't be bothered to actually read the regulation or is outright lying. Only Alienware is preventing the sale of gaming PCs in California, and Dell themselves are choosing to do it not due to the regulation. I can't back up to say that that's true or not.
Yeah.
The article says that those other states also ban them, so I don't know where they get that
Well,
from.
I can tell you one thing. From the purchasing experience of the Alienware. We made the purchase order late, beginning of July, I think, maybe mid-July. We made the order, and we were given a delivery date of late August.
Okay.
Drawn out, like something like 10 weeks. And I said, look, okay, right, because I can't build my own at this point. I can't buy the GPU I want, and so I'm paying a high markup, and I'm doing it from a brand name because they're still giving me the best deal compared to the components that I wanted. But we got the computer 2.5 weeks later. So it's there. I think it has to do, and at this point, it might just be that this is all about seeing where they are going to be taxed more. And that's why they're not selling to those states. That's usually how lobbying works, right? If there's a tax that we don't want, right, and we put a squeeze where that is the case. So maybe there's some taxation laws that are brewing or whatever, right? And maybe
taxes are usually used to regulate behavior in a lot of cases.
Right.
Like cigarette taxes are super high with the idea that it would stop people from smoking.
But that's when the governments manage to control industry, right? But industry pushes back by
raising prices on the consumer,
or stopping completely.
Yeah.
Think of the uproar if you can't get something. But yeah.
Here's another tidbit from this. It says that the regulation only covers power consumption at idle on a pre-built PC. It also mentions greater credits for specially configured gaming systems, such as those with discrete graphic cards. So
maybe there is some thought behind that regulation. I mean, we're auditioning because we like our freedom, but maybe there is something in that.
Maybe you could do some communities have voluntary. Some people have regular. Some people have forced. But there are a lot of communities. Their power companies offer high usage credit, where they'll they have put a device on your house, and for example, they'll shut your air conditioning off at peak times, or stop the cycling of it to save on peak. And maybe they can come up with a technology if your gaming computer is idle for 30 minutes, it goes into a standby mode. So that would be better than, I mean, from what the other reaction to this is, they're not banning it necessarily, but that Dell is voluntarily not selling. I need to read more, because the two sides of this article are very different. So,
yeah, we need to find the release, the press release that Dell did about it or whatever, and see what the language is, and trying to figure out where that's coming from.
Yeah,
a lot of guesswork and a lot of rumor, and
yes, it's interesting. Somebody in the comments of the article says, "Yeah, California reminds me when they claimed some environmentalist made this deal, said that when there was they claimed that if the Bay Area stopped flushing so much during the Super Bowl, there would be less droughts." Okay, that's actually believable.
So you took me back to an old Israeli film, late 80s, maybe beginning of the 90s, where it was a farce about politicians. It's called the Plumber, and it's about this plumber that finds himself in this political scheme, and politicians are running this plumber as a no-name new guy who's going to bring change and stuff. And he comes up with this idea of generating energy by flushing toilets. So
is that considered kinetic energy? Toilet flush? I mean, then toilets will be measured in their potential energy instead of in their how much water they save.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's interesting. And I'm going back to those older dual Xeon HPs. I don't know if you ever looked at at any kind of widget that shows you the CPU speed on it. And again, we're talking about machines that are probably early 2000. And the CPU speed it's a Xeon 3.4 gigahertz, and it goes between 3 and 1.8. I mean, constantly. It's not like wait 5 minutes until the minute you need more power, it goes up. And when it's done with this, it drops back down. And I'm sure that there's a lot of computers today that do the same thing. But something like this will solve Dell's problem. It's when you want to have the power. I mean, I would hate to see somebody playing a game and suddenly everything is in a 1980s flight simulator mode. I mean, come on. But yeah,
The actual California regulation says that high-end desktops can consume no more than 75 kilowatt hours per year. But if equipped with discrete graphic cards or some other adder from a specific list, its maximum power consumption can be increased based on bandwidth of the graphic card's onboard memory. That's pretty complicated. Think about it. But hey, I'm going to bring my computer down to get certified so I can get more power. You need to look. What components do you have?
So it's
What's the bandwidth of your backplane?
From what I'm hearing, right? Dell's next marketing campaign will be, "I've got the power."
each Dell computer will come with a windmill. It'll have an unfolding on the top. You set a fan up in the room blowing through it, and that will offset the power. Why not?
I mean, look, if this is, and I'm sure that chip makers and computer makers are trying to do their best to cut down on power consumption, not because they're trying to sell in California, but I mean, it was always a battle. The CPU is getting too hot. We need to somehow use less power and figure out ways how to get the speed without using so much power. And it's a constant moving target, kind of to speak. What'd you say, guy?
It's a constant battle. I agree.
Yeah.
And I remember reading an article a couple of years ago about whatever your position is on the environment, nobody objects to saving power. Why? Why would you? I mean, there's no reason to waste anything. So my position is more conservation than it is for other reasons. I think we could, but the point the person was making is whatever your position is, we as a country have always had innovation that comes along and fixes something. And that's the great part about it is if we just restrict and leave it that way, that's bad. But if we put restrictions in place that force change, that makes a difference. I mean, look at the battery power now that you can get that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Right.
Amazing. Now there are consequences. Lithium is not a good substance. You don't want to have a leaking battery. It's hard. Lithium is a precious metal. It's a metal, right? Isn't lithium a metal? Or whatever it is. It's a precious.
Whatever.
It's something that's in low quantities around the planet.
Yeah.
And is dangerous. But it does what the next generation of battery they're hoping to make is going to be safer, perform as well, and be cheaper. And they're working on it. So we will solve this problem. We don't have to go necessarily to draconian steps to get there. But if we agree that, like my thoughts on Generation 4 nuclear power, these are amazing technology that we need to be investing in now that would solve, whether you agree with global warming or not, we need to do it because it will solve energy issues. It will create we could be the world leader in these small community power stations that run on thorium and molten salt as a coolant that are so safe that you could drop it off of an airplane and it wouldn't harm anybody. I mean, this is how safe these things are. We need to get past the political side and just say, hey, for practical reasons, we need to do this. I would love to have an electric car that was practical for me. It just doesn't exist yet. That I can afford anyway.
There were a couple articles that I read this week, and one of them was talking about that they're already working on a battery that's not lithium ion, but sodium ion. And it would last a lot longer.
Yeah.
I mean, sodium is all over the place.
Well, sodium in some forms is also dangerous, but
I understand. Yeah. Another company is coming up with some metal.
Would you have grinders at home to add to food after the batteries are done?
No, you take the spent battery and you throw it in the grinder and
You-
use it to.
You just
Yeah.
put it in the salad.
That's
You
what-
just
yeah.
open the
Yeah.
thing and
How many slices of battery would you like on your salad?
yeah, I mean it's exciting to know that we're going to be able to see some more uh advancements in all this technology in our lifetime. But you know,
I want. Were we talking about getting into orbit? Was there something this past week we talked about on Signal about getting into orbit?
Oh,
Um,
space army camps.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, I was thinking I would love to see in science fiction books I've read, they had this concept of the space elevator, which is literally a gigantic tower that goes up 60 miles. And it is a like the most practical way, if they can invent the technology to support this thing, of putting things in orbit. It's literally an elevator that will take things up into orbit.
yeah, they'll put out up a oh no, you can just tie it to the moon and
Well, believe it or not, they did test with the space shuttle this special composite cord, because there was an idea that you could have something in orbit and pull something up on a giant cable. They actually tested this tether, and they had a satellite that they put out there, and they started spinning everything around to see, and if it broke, but they used it to test in orbit from the space shuttle.
a dumbwaiter.
Exactly. I mean, you think about it. If you could, another technology that I read about in a book that is possible is this idea that you can create a launch vehicle, has no engine on board, but it has a chamber, an air chamber with a nozzle where there's a ground-based laser that fires it in pulses. And each pulse heats the air and creates an exhaust plume. And then it heats the air and it creates an exhaust plume and could potentially launch something. But the problem is the laser has to be strong enough and it has to track that thing all the way up as it goes up into orbit as it creates the exhaust plume. But it's fascinating ideas. Yeah.
Yep.
People working on anti-gravity. And I don't mean anti-gravity to make something float. I mean anti-gravity to cancel gravity. They think that if one of the speculations about flying saucers, how could they travel the way they do? How can they change direction the way they do? And one theory that they put out there was that if they had a way to shield gravity, in other words, I could cancel Earth's gravity and tie myself to the moon's gravity with my vehicle and get drawn to the moon by canceling the Earth's gravity, or get drawn to Jupiter, or get drawn to the sun. And it's interesting how I was reading this past week an article about gravity and how gravity, the moon affects the Earth's seas and all that stuff, but also the Earth's weather is affected by the gravity of the sun, by the gravity of Mars, by the gravity of Jupiter. All these things spinning around in space over time they might be small effects, but they do have effects. The Earth's wobble. I've read a very interesting book, older book from 1912 about the invention of the compass, of the invention of the chronometer, clock, and the invention of the sextant for navigation. And it was fascinating. And so I say, even back then, they knew about the wobble of the Earth's orbit and how that affects compass, for example. Is your compass accurate? And over time, precession and descension, I forget what the other name is for it, magnetic north and true north vary depending on where you are and what so there's all these things that are affected by other planets. You can't believe that they understood it in 1912.
Cool.
And on that, oh God, sorry.
No, I just said cool.
Yeah. On that note, you ready for specials?
I am. I actually have them open, ready to go. And this is a specials. Why you may ask, is it a specials? Because this is the Olympics edition.
Oi!
Olympics, not Olympics, Olympics. So some very interesting graphics I put here from from Olympic events. Some of these may no longer be actual events. Did you watch the opening recap when
No.
they went through and said what the actual events will be? Some of them were, I mean, there's skateboarding, and there's a couple I didn't know existed, but apparently now are or were in trials. And then there's some that just went away that are just not popular anymore. So there was nobody to compete. I don't know that they still do the tug of war, possible as recently, but some of them are a little wacky. But that being said, what is today? August 1st, 2021. It's August already. It's incredible. So we have a rather standard specials today, starting with Staples. All right, let me make this a little bit bigger so I can read it. Okay. Amazon smart plugs are on sale, $10 off, $14.99, normally $24.99. And that's probably across the board. Usually when Amazon allows sales to happen, it'll be with all retailers and on their own store. But still, that's a pretty good price. The best deal I got on a smart plug was a special offer where you could buy one for $4.99. And that was a promotional thing. And I did get my one. And I've purchased a few others since then. But good deal on smart plugs. And they're pretty easy to use.
They're very easy to install, yeah.
Yeah. And you can also use other manufacturer smart plugs like TP-Link's,
As
Casa,
long as they are Wi-Fi and not.
Well, as long as they have a relationship with Amazon that lets
correct.
them have a link in their app. Because I have Casa smart plugs that are controlled by Alexa. And
Yeah, so it's a
it works
Wi-Fi.
fine. Yeah, it works fine.
Not RF.
It's just a little more complicated to set up, but they work. Okay. Logitech H390 over the ear headset, USB headset. You want to get back to basics, simplicity, USB connection, no Bluetooth, something comfortable with good audio, depending on your circumstances. $21.99, which is $8 off. We got a Lenovo Chromebook, AMD processor. I don't know which one I didn't look. Oh, A6, I'm sorry. $199.50 off. Probably, if you'd been to Best Buy recently to look at Chromebooks, they got some Chromebooks selling for $600 and $700.
Kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. But still, if you want a Chromebook, here's a good starting point.
Yep.
So, Asus desktop with i5 processor is $100 off, $599. Got an Asus i3 laptop, 15.6-inch display for $299, save $150. Good price for an entry level, especially an i3. You don't usually see an i3 down below $300. Good entry level laptop, 22-inch LED monitor, HP 115, save 14. Got an HP laptop Core i5 for $529, which is $100 off. And got a Seagate 1 terabyte PCI Express solid state drive for $109, which is $10 off the regular price. And this is to date, this next wireless router is the cheapest AX wireless router I've seen yet. This is a Linksys MaxStream AX 1800 dual band wireless router, Ethernet with gigabit Ethernet, and it's $99, $50 off. So if you have I wouldn't recommend it for a large, complicated home. But if you want to have AX, you're in a small house or in an apartment, or just have a small part of the house that you need to support, this is a really good choice for the price. Next, we have TP-Link AC1750. This particular one has been around for a long time, very flexible, very versatile, has Ethernet support, it is a repeater. It is actually, you can use it as an access point. 1750 megabits Wi-Fi dual band. They call it a range extender, but it has a lot of function. $59, which is 20 off. APC 450 kVA battery backup system for $49, which is $6 off. I still think if you belong to Costco and you need a battery backup, they usually have in stock. It's either 650. I think it's a 650. and the standard regular price is $44. And it's an APC. Roku 4K streaming media player for $79, which is $20 off. Okay, so moving on from there to Office Depot Office Max, we've got an Asus VivoBook 15.6-inch AMD Ryzen 7 laptop for $379, which is $110 off. Got a Dell 15.6-inch Core i3 laptop for $489.99. A little high on the i3 side, but it's got a SSD, it's got 8 gig of memory, so it's not an entry-level machine. Got an HP 15.6-inch Core i7 laptop. This is a 256 gig solid-state drive, 8 gig of memory, $679, which is $55 off the regular price. Don't see a lot of bundles anymore, but they are starting to show up. We've got an HP Slim desktop PC bundle, AMD Ryzen 3 with a 23.8-inch monitor for $499, which is $75 off. Lenovo, I didn't know Lenovo branded gaming machines. Did they buy somebody, or is this their own?
No, I think they have it for a while.
They did. I just had never seen them on sale, to be honest. I knew they were probably out there, but I never saw them featured anywhere.
I think Costco sells.
They sell them?
I think Walmart too.
Yeah, I just didn't. In Office Depot Staples, I just never saw them.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so it's a Ryzen 7, 1800X. I don't know how good a processor that is, and I didn't check the specs on it, but it's $1385, which is $114 off the regular price. Got a Logitech wireless headset. Now this is interesting because it's DESIT, which is nice, which means it's not Bluetooth, so it's going to give you a lot more range. It says 328.1 feet.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to get my tape measure out and make sure it works.
That's because it's metric. Come on, man. Come on.
But it's not cheap, but these do work well. I actually have a Logitech. What was a very good Plantronics? I have a Plantronics multiple. I don't use it anymore, but it was a USB and wired to the phone headset that would work. It was wireless like this, DESIT wireless, and you could go on the fly and switch back and forth between USB. So if you had a IP call, or if you had a phone call come in on your standard phone, you could switch back and forth on the fly around the house. It would ring, you could talk, you could mute it. It's great. So I could wander around the house if I was on a conference call, or wander around if I was expecting a call. And this is similar to that and what the capability. So 202, which is $50 off the regular price. Next is a couple of really interesting keyboards. I kind of went off into the weeds here, but found a couple of these things. VisionTech Wireless Candy Board, it's called, which is an interesting small keyboard with a glide pad USB, $30, which is $35 off the regular price.
It's a big pad.
It's what?
It's a big glide pad.
Yeah, basically a big glide.
Large.
So if this would probably work, I'm going to guess it works with like Roku or something that supports a Bluetooth keyboard. I know that the Fire Stick supports it.
This is one of those little tiny things.
Yeah, it's a little.
Okay,
I think the USB. I believe I didn't get into the details, so I think the USB dongle is actually Bluetooth, but it would depend. If it's not Bluetooth, then it won't work with those other devices I mentioned.
It will work. You just need some sort of adapter.
Yeah.
Hook up a regular Logitech keyboard with a dongle to an Amazon Fire TV, so it works.
Yeah, so you can do it.
Just you need some sort of splitter that will give you a USB connector, but it can work.
I have that. The Ethernet adapter that I bought, the generic. Amazon makes its own Ethernet adapter, which is just Ethernet for Fire Stick. But you can buy a generic adapter that has Ethernet and USB, and you can actually plug in a memory card just to get more memory on the Fire Stick. It works. I have it on a couple of mine. Next one is the AbleNet Big Blue Vision Board Large Bluetooth Keyboard. 113. It's expensive, $11 off, but it looks pretty interesting. And it's if you're like me and it's low light and you're watching TV and you want to type. I mean, the good news is my laptop is backlit. But look at the size. It's white keys with black letters, and it's big. So I like that idea. I don't know it looks like it's almost a full-size keyboard here. But this is
yeah, but it says every key is 1 inch in size.
Wow.
Right? So
that's big.
1 square inch for a key, you have 5, sorry. Right? 5 rows.
This is over 2 feet wide. Yeah. Interesting. All right. So we have a SanDisk 256 gig USB 3 flash drive. Is $29.99, which is $41 off the regular price. So not necessarily useful for everything, but in some cases, yes. If you're doing when I have a customer and I'm doing moving them from one machine to another, and I don't have a network to do it over, or it's not practical to do that, I might use something like this to, copy all their documents over and move them over to the machine, because it's USB 3, it'd be fast. Western Digital 4 terabyte USB 3.0 external desktop drive, $94.99, which is $55 off. You may be able to find it cheaper than that for the 4, but that's a pretty good sale price. LG 31.5 inch IPS monitor for $179, save $50. And Amnon, you need to get 4 or 5 of these for the studio. Logitech video conferencing camera, USB 3. Look at the resolution.
What in the world? Why?
3840 by 2160.
Yeah, but
it's because if you have a large room, right, talking to another large room on a huge screen, you want something like this.
You want the resolution. If you can,
sitting next to the computer.
If you can take advantage of that resolution with your bandwidth, so that's the key. 3720.
It's almost the same number as the size. The resolution it supports.
It's $1. It's $1
per pixel.
Yeah. There you go.
That's for
$165.
The resolution, 384
by 2160.
3840 on 2160. That's 4K. So it's for 4K resolution video conferencing.
Yeah.
I think they just missed. They added one more digits. It's probably 384 by 216.
They lost one. They lost one pixel somewhere. Yeah. But I think that the reason why it's so wide is probably because it's got
speakers
built in. So I don't know. I didn't look at it closely. For that price, I want speakers. So, all right. So finally moving on to Best Buy, and I have to commend them because their ad was a little friendlier today. Sometimes their ad is a little squirrely. You're trying to find things, but it was actually better, and I didn't have to do double clicks, double captures to edit the stuff in. I could do it as a single capture.
They listen.
Nice.
They listen.
Yeah, I'm sure they listen. Yeah, they hired somebody else who didn't know how to do the other way. So. All right, deal of the day. You want an Apple TV, and I'm sure as Apple does the same way that Amazon does on their products, this price is probably available from all people that sell Apple stuff, including Apple. But Apple 4K TV, Apple TV, 32 gig for $139. Now, 32 gig is not a lot when it comes to apps, so you probably want to get something higher than that. But this is a good entry level. If you're not going to install a whole bunch of stuff on there, I never exceed. I have a couple of Fire Sticks with the base memory, and I have everything I want on there and more, and I haven't run out of memory. One time when I was playing with my original one, and I loaded it up to the point where it's out of memory, and that's when I added that card, that USB adapter that gave me the additional space that I could store programs like utility programs that don't run all the time.
So what's the difference between this and having the Apple TV app on your TV?
I think Apple TV app is access to their streaming service.
Yeah.
It's not a platform. It's not a device that your Apple TV app is just so you can stream Apple.
And
Apple
what
has
is
their own
Apple
streaming
TV?
service.
and what else do you do with this thing?
Oh, you can load Netflix, you can load whatever you want.
So
on that thing.
this is more like a Roku,
It's like a Roku.
thing.
Like
Exactly.
a Roku. Yeah. like a
Interesting.
Roku. Yep.
A
It's just
very expensive, very limited. It's even more
Yeah.
limited than Roku.
Yeah,
No,
that's
I'm not-
right.
I'm not kidding.
But if you're an Apple fan, I have the original, well, second generation one that I used for a long time before I got my first Roku.
Yeah,
So
well,
I was happy with
hey,
it.
I'm an Apple fanboy, and I want to pay more for less, and that's it.
And you can afford it. Why buy it at Walmart when you can buy it
Look,
on
it's a
Rodeo
good-
Drive
it's
for
an okay
twice the
product.
price?
Don't get me wrong. It's an okay product. It's okay product, just like any other product, right? There's no difference than an Apple TV and a Roku and a Fire TV. It all has its strength and its weaknesses, right? Well, that's it.
One of the nice
And
things
if
about
you are
this,
tied, if you are tied into the Apple ecosystem, right? If you have an iPhone, if you have an iPad, then yeah, it makes a lot more sense to use this than, buying into a Fire TV, unless, right, you don't care about the specifics of the interconnection. So
it also has a remote. They usually have, when they first came out with this product, the remote was like, oh, it's like 3 buttons. I mean, how does this work? But their remote, they do a good job with the remote. This actually has a built-in glide pad in the remote itself, which is nice. The top part of it there is actually a glide surface, from what I understand. I don't have one. Yeah, so that's unique. Okay, several Apple products on sale. This is a good deal. If you want an iMac, now's the time to buy it. iMac 21.5 inch 4K display, Core 5 or Core i5, 8 gig of memory, $999, which is $500 off. That is a sale you do not see from Apple. That's a good deal. So that would be, if you want to be an Apple person, you don't have to have a laptop, this is the way to go. Or either that or buy a Mac Mini. But even Mac Minis are expensive. All right, MacBook Air 13.3 inch, Apple M1 chip, 8 gig of memory, 256 solid state drive for $849, which is $150 off. And we have a kids PC, 11.6 inch Kano PC, laptop and tablet. Windows 10, I guess it's going to be Windows 10 S, I would guess, for this price, $149, which is, it's $150 off. But I have my own. If I had young kids today, I don't know that I would be giving them their own PC yet. Just like I don't know what type of phone I would get them. I might get them a very limited phone so they could call for emergencies at first.
And they'll buy their own.
When they're 10. So, but this, if you have a specific thing you want to do with your kids, I mean, they need it for school or something, I hope this comes with some type of monitoring or management.
Well, Windows 10 comes with it.
Yeah, so you can manage it from that perspective. But I mean, maybe
Windows
there's
10
something.
has very, very efficient parental control built in.
So maybe they highlight that and make it easy for parents to get to use it. So that would be great.
Maybe.
Plus, it's got an orange keyboard. What could be wrong with that? It could be, it doesn't.
I know it's orange.
And what it is? It's a training device. The keys are not labeled. The kids have to learn how to use it without them being labeled. Forced to learn QWERTY keyboard.
We talked about this, I think, in the past. Kano, it's a line of computers that they built that they sell. They used to sell, at least. I don't know if this one is the same, as a build kit for kids.
Yeah, I remember this.
Like a Raspberry Pi and a bunch of stuff. So I don't know if this laptop is actually a Raspberry Pi in an encasing, right? That you hook up all of the things on your own. But that's the way they used to do it. And they used to have Linux-based OS, but I think they migrated all of the software. They had a lot of dedicated learning software on it. Learn how to program, some English stuff, some etc. stuff like that, and it's all, so you get like this bundle of software, of educational software, which is I'm pretty sure it's completely open source and completely free so you can set up your own with any device you want. So but it is a cool thing for kids.
And look at this is a touchscreen. This has got some nice feature to it.
Yeah. And
for the price. And were they involved in remember that UN initiative for the?
Yeah. No, they're sort of an aftermarket thought of that. Maybe somebody was involved, somebody in the company was involved with that project, but it's like, this is the first world version of that project.
Yeah. I remember that project was so cool, but they really struggled to try to get it. It was supposed to be $99 machine, something like that.
$100. That's
really, they struggled with getting it down to that price point to make it available. They did eventually come up with a machine that was hardened, that had features that could be used in remote areas, and
I wonder.
Didn't they have one that had a crank? Didn't they have one that had a so they could?
That's
it
the
could
same
be powered
one.
by
Had a crank. Yeah.
It was interesting. We got an Acer Chromebook, a 14-inch touch screen Ryzen 3 for $419, which is 80 off. An Asus ZenBook 14 AMD Ryzen 5 for $669, which is 50 off. And a Dell, a Dell 2-in-1 touchscreen laptop, Core i7 for $899, which is $180 off. And we've got a Lenovo Idea Center 5 Core i5 desktop 1 terabyte hard drive, 8 gig of memory for $549, which is, what's that say, 50 off. Samsung 2 terabyte internal SSD for $189, save 40. Not a lot of printers on sale. Not a lot of printers in general. They're available, but it just seems like there must be supply constraints still on a lot of the stuff. But Canon image class D570 monochrome all-in-one laser printer, printer scanner fax copier, $179, and it is on sale. Normally $229. Excuse me. And finally, a Western Digital 5 terabyte external USB 3.0 drive for $99.
That's a good price.
Now, that's a good deal on that. On a portable USB 3.0 drive, 5 terabytes, $99. Good price, 80 off. And that's it for today for the Olympics. I haven't really watched much. I watched the opening. It took me a while to find the opening ceremony because NBC offered it to those people who subscribe to their streaming service, and they have something else called Peacock, which is another streaming service. But in order to use that, you had to sign up back and forth. So we found an alternative to watch clips. Couldn't watch the whole thing, but we saw what we wanted to see, which was good. And my daughter and my wife are following certain sports right now, and I haven't watched much myself. And I'm watching the highlights. But some controversy, but they aren't there always.
Well, all right.
The Cano one, I'm gonna pull the trigger on this one. I'm gonna buy one, even though I don't have a kid anymore. I just have a kid in me.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing for that price for a little travel machine.
Look, so it's no. It's, you'll see it's thick because in the back you can see. Can I share my screen? Let's see.
You should.
With everyone. Okay, so as you can see, it has some thickness, and the reason it has some thickness is because it's basically a tablet with a detachable keyboard.
Oh, okay.
So you can see here it's sitting, and here you can see it completely detached. There's a connector at the bottom, so the keyboard doesn't seem to be wireless. I don't know, maybe it is. But as you can see, there's certain components to it. There's a main board with all the I/O hooked up. That red cano thing is something that's probably the power supply. And on the right side of the back, you see it looks like a Raspberry Pi. So it's like a composition of all of these. The back one, the blue thing there, I think that's some type of sensor that the kids. Oh, it's a speaker.
Oh, it's a kit. It's a kit, really.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you get the kit, you build it up, right? And then with the included software, it comes pre-installed with Windows, which is Windows, maybe a limited version of Windows. I don't know. I'll check in a sec. But it comes bundled with a bunch of software, educational software, where you can learn how to code, and you can learn about computers, and you can also play some games, right? So all of that. And yeah, they usually sell it for $300, and for $150, that's fantastic. Now, it has a very low end processor, right? A 1.1 gigahertz.
Well,
Yeah, it's a Celeron N4000.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's cool, but it isn't very powerful. But it's definitely something you can make use of.
I wonder if the eMMC is upgradable. Probably not. It doesn't look like it has a SATA connection.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
4 gig. It's Windows 10 Home.
Yeah. So not S.
Windows 10
No,
Home?
that is not S. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no reason that it shouldn't run complete Windows. Raspberry Pis can run Windows. Oh yeah, I see. There's different models.
I'm looking at the Best Buy model now on their USB-C charger and cable, keyboard stand cover.
I think it's worth having a direct look at this. Very cool. And we do have kids visiting from time to time, and this can be a very cool tool.
To keep them busy.
No, to get them hooked on something other than just mindless entertainment. I like it.
Is it designed for Windows 11?
Probably not. Maybe that's why they're doing the price mark.
That's it. We were having a discussion the other day, a couple of us, over Windows 11 and what hardware would be supported. And I haven't read anything new, but one of the people I was talking to said that they were definitely targeting AMD. And what I'm sure there's support for Intel, but there's something going on in the background now, at least in the early stages of the development, that is not favoring Intel. And I haven't had a chance to research that, but the person said, a lot of development is centered around AMD, supporting AMD hardware. So,
all right.
Isn't it weird how situations change over time? Who's the favorite?
But it's always
in the battle between Intel and AMD over the years. AMD was on the skids, and they were back, and then they collapsed, and then they were back, and Intel did some really good things, and then made some bad decisions, and it's very interesting.
But we need to remember AMD is like this tiny little.
Oh, I realize.
Intel, right? So
I realize.
Yeah, it is interesting.
My Pam's cousin was an original person with Intel who was early employee, and also was like their head technical writer in the early days. And I just saw him a week ago at a family reunion. He's retired now. He lives in Washington State. No, Oregon. I'm sorry, Oregon.
And
I was just saying that he has a very comfortable retirement, put it that way. Has his own nice property somewhere. He lives in a small town outside of Portland, Oregon, and did really well by staying with Intel.
all right, now listen to this. Forget the home office. 45% of American teleworkers regularly work from a couch. 38% regularly work from bed. And
Bed?
20% often work outside, according to a study by the home improvement marketing firm CraftJack. People have spent an average of $268 trying to improve their remote work setup. But a whopping 50% still say the pain and discomfort of working from home is enough to send them back to the office. It's not enough for companies to provide stipends for teleworkers to buy ergonomic chairs or desks. Many people simply do not have the space allocated inside their homes for an office setup, and it can be too expensive to move to a bigger place. So yeah, you do it from bed, you do it from your couch. As long as you are not interacting with customers, it's
Well, why would that stop somebody?
well,
Unless
What-
it's a video. I remember being on
This
video
is-
conferences where the guy's at a desk in his bedroom and his wife is in the background folding laundry.
no. What
Here
is
the-
this? And
This machine is the IBM PC Convertible.
yeah,
It has 2 floppies. This was the first machine I had that I could use to dial in from home to go online.
It was like 40 pounds though, right?
Yeah, it was 40 pounds. It weighed a ton. You could add things to the back to give it more capability. It was a LCD, early LCD, kind of that gray, fuzzy display. And
Toshiba
but
were the biggest in this area.
but I could only use it in 2 places in my house conveniently because I had an available jack for the modem. One was in I had a closet in my bedroom that I turned into a little office, tiny little office, and I could work from there, or I could lay in bed. And at night, if I wanted to get a jump on the next day's profs, right, which was not email, it was email, but it was proprietary, internal IBM profs, I would check my mail before I went to bed at night. I would dial in with the modem in it. I'm sure Gene remembers this. And log into the 370 system and check my mail.
and you know something? It's got a widescreen.
Yes, absolutely. You could watch 4K movies on it.
Yeah, but what was the power consumption?
Oh, that's true. It was too high.
Probably nothing.
Banned in California.
Oh.
It had a gigantic brick, I can tell you that. Power brick.
Well, that's because IBM always went with
7 pounds. But it was at the time, it was a great little machine for what it was. I mean, it was it had a bunch of weird new portable. I had one of remember the portable PC that looked like a suitcase? That had
Yeah.
it had a orange screen. Well, there were 2 versions of it. One was the small, like an 8-inch screen that was orange, and they had another one that was a plasma screen that was orange. It was a lot brighter. That was the portable PC, I think they called it. That was actually a pretty decent machine. Had a hard drive in it.
the sewing
And-
machine.
Yeah, exactly. It looked like a sewing machine. You're right.
Yep.
The first one. And then the second one was smaller. And I remember taking that when I travel and I'd use it to, again, dial in through a modem.
And Gene says, and it came with a Hartman carrying case also, I believe.
Yes, that's right. That's right. It's pretty cool. I think it
Yeah.
costs like $5,000, some crazy thing like that. But I got
Yeah.
one because I had a lab that I was responsible for running demonstrations in this lab. So this was part of my demo kit. So I was able to bring it home.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Gal, you have anything to comment about getting your phone back and restoring and all that?
It was surprisingly easy. I thought I'll have a lot more work on some of the apps. A lot of the details, like the setup of the apps, configurations of them, was exactly as I set it up on the old on the old
Phone.
on the old phone. There were a few exceptions, of course, and those exceptions are probably unique to me because the way I use my phone, and it's not something that will be across the board for most Android users. So I would say the experience of restoring from a lost phone on an Android is probably up to par to any experience somebody has with an iPhone. Was impressive, right? I mean, as long as you're connected to a Google account and that Google account is configured to back up, which is pretty basic because as you set up the phone, that's the first thing it asks you. It restored 300 and something apps that I had. And obviously only those that were downloaded from the App Store, those that were external, I had to deal with them on my own, but there aren't many.
Why?
It just
It will not back them up?
It doesn't back up the app so much as it backs up the record of this app has been installed. So
Okay.
when it restores it, it grabs it from the App Store.
Okay.
And so it does that, and it did it very well. It just took its time, right? Downloading the apps and installing them. 300 is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It also allowed me the option to select what to restore. So I could say, okay, restore these, but don't restore these. So there was a lot of control over the process, and still it was pretty painless. I did lose some content because I didn't back it up. Intentionally, I didn't want it to upload to the Google Cloud, and it wasn't upload to my own personal cloud as well. So I lost that, but that's on me. Any other user who would use it will have it backed up to Google, and it'll just restore. WhatsApp, which I don't really use, but that one was restored completely. Signal is another thing, and this is what I lost probably the most, is because I didn't have a recent backup of Signal, I lost my history there. But connecting back and getting all the contacts back, that wasn't a problem. So on the on and all, pretty painless, a lot painless than what I thought it would be.
Oh, nice. And you're
So
done.
I don't recommend using your phone, but if you do, right, it's not a big deal.
So you're done fooling with it. That's it. I mean, you.
Yeah. I'm back to normal tinkering now.
Oh, good.
As opposed to your abnormal tinkering?
As opposed to excessive tinkering,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying to get everything, back to normal.
It's that condition is well known and is untreatable, basically. You just have to come in and out of it. There's nothing once you get into the tinkering mode, the only way to fix it is to satisfy the urge and to get over it. No matter how much your family tries to rip you away from staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning trying to fix something that would normally people would just say, eh.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't experienced that much lately, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Consumed.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, something else for you, Gal. Facebook said on Tuesday that it's temporarily halting sales of the Oculus Quest 2, a month before a planned update to a new entry-level model with more onboard storage. The move comes after several reported cases of skin reaction to the headset, included foam faceplate. The social media giant
face.
also confirmed that. Which one do you guys have?
We have the first generation Quest.
Oh.
Yeah. Very, very fun, but I must say, I haven't taken that out of its case for 4 months.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
an expensive shelf item.
But I haven't played anything recently. Shai, he used it for a while, but he also haven't touched it in a long time. I think he took it out a couple of months ago when some friends came over and they played a bit with it. But VR is still, you're either hardcore into it or it's a novelty. So it is not. It's probably less of a less accessible than casual gaming. Yeah. Interesting. It's fun as hell. Don't get me wrong. It's fun as hell, but it is very. It has, I don't know, probably for a slob computer guy like me, right? It requires too much movement, and so I do take it out, but it also is very isolating. And the only isolating thing that I do is like sitting in front of the computer today and dealing with a server or fixing something or stuff like that. Playing, I don't know. I think I stopped playing with myself.
Hey, Spence.
Hey, I'm not what?
You said that IBM is called portable?
There was the portable and the convertible and
they were both, as Gene reminds us in the chat.
I need to look.
They were called
luggables. Yeah,
luggables. I remember that. Yep.
One of them literally weighed probably 30 to 40 pounds. Yep. Had a big handle on it. Like you said, it was looked like a sewing machine.
Yeah.
In the case.
Yeah.
And you'd stand it up and.
But it was a big thing. It was a big thing to have one.
The very first one was literally two
Yeah.
Of the 5 and it was a 5 1/4 floppies.
Yeah.
And it was you tilted the keyboard, you laid it down so that it was laying on its side, and you tilted the keyboard forward. It actually had a little coiled cord. You could move the keyboard and detach it from the case. It had a small screen. I'm going to say it was like 8 or 9 inches across diagonal, and the 2 floppies. And I remember taking one of those and putting a hard drive in it, a 10 meg hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. It was enough power, but it was not recommended to lug your hard drive around.
Right. I remember the ad copies for most of these, and it always included somebody with a hard hat. It's like
that's right.
On the site, or or construction or something like that. It wasn't like for office.
I got a picture of it. I found it. I'll put it out here. Interesting.
So, what do you guys use to manage like tasks, to-do lists, stuff like that?
Paper and pencil.
Paper
Seriously,
pencil.
I do.
No,
I have these cards. These are actually the same format as a tab card, just or as a punch card, but there's no lines on it. So I have a box of 5,000 of these that I bought. Actually, a friend bought for me years ago, and I have these tiny little clips. And this is my main way I manage. I have my calendar with to-dos on it too. I shouldn't say that. I actually do have an electronic calendar with reminders and appointments and all that. But for just task lists around the house, this is what I use.
I use my head, and needless to say, a lot of the tasks are not being done.
Okay. So you guys heard of getting things done back in the early 2000s? GTD.
Was that the one that came out on PDAs? Originally?
No. So GTD was Getting Things Done was a book by an organizational expert called David Allen, I think that was his name. And the entire tech industry, got really on board with the philosophy and concept and all of that. You remember, have you ever used the term zero inbox? So zero inbox is basically a concept taking from GTD in a way. Zero inbox means using your inbox as your to-do list, basically, and meaning when you don't have anything in your inbox, it means all of your tasks are done. So you are going to do your maximum to get it done. Anyway, people buying into the concept of getting things done, of managing complete life's to-dos, right? It's not just a to-do list. It's just a whole concept of methodologies and tricks to manage day-to-day tasks as well as whole full-blown projects, but on a personal level, right? How to take your personal day-to-day and always know what it's going to be about. And so GTD was the thing, but it never came up with the tool. So everybody was using some sort of different tool to implement GTD. And there's a lot that are focused directly at it. There's website and apps that you can sync, and there's a whole slew of tools that are trying to get GTD, getting things done, usable. And GTD is based on paper. It's based on just having lists and having something called a tickler file, where you have the days of the month, and within them the stuff that is related to stuff that's going to happen on those days, etc. And so the most interesting and very, very well established, very old piece of software that seems to be the most complete implementation and the best implementation is Emacs. Remember Emacs?
You're kidding.
I am not kidding. So Emacs has something, a module, which is today baked completely into Emacs, called org mode. Org mode are files with the extension org, and they are organizational lists, basically. It's a hierarchical, similar to GitHub Markdown type of syntax that you work with. And org mode is basically plain text, which together with Emacs that knows how to read that plain text, can create agendas for you, can give you alerts, can give you a whole slew of features. And it's probably the only reason today to really recommend start looking into Emacs again.
That's from the early 80s?
Yeah, Emacs is still around. It's still complex as ever. There are the most interesting thing about Emacs today is that the most popular modules for it, I think they're called layers, are it's called evil mode and org mode. And evil mode is basically VI key binding for Emacs. So you got all of the Emacs header from VI, right? Using Emacs today in VI mode, evil mode, with org mode, just because of that. It's daunting. It's a daunting experience at the beginning, I must say. I was very skeptical in trying to, in taking a step into it and looking into it. When I stumbled upon it, I got to say I'm hooked. It is great. You still need to figure out a way of running Emacs efficiently, because Emacs on a Windows or Emacs on a Linux can be, slow to load and stuff. It's still Emacs. It still has its trouble. But once you are living within it, it works very well, right? I can say the same about Outlook. It takes a bit to load. It's not like immediately. So using that, I've been playing with that for the past month. I can say, if you guys are into an old school, new school experience, org mode has been around since 2008, something like that, maybe a bit later. And it's like the Emacs feature that brings people to use Emacs once again. It's very interesting. There's also a special configuration build for Emacs named Spacemax, which is basically a whole bunch of add-ons and configuration to make Emacs a lot more accessible and a lot more modern in its approach to control and work. Definitely recommend taking a look at that. Just a tidbit of old school.
And Wiggs has some comments about it in the chat. I mean, I've never really used it.
Yeah, so all of so that's the thing. That's one of the things that I've never that I've always found very, very that distanced me from Emacs. That didn't allow me to really pick in, and it's all of the keyboard chords that you had to learn. And almost anybody that I know that uses Emacs has their own custom way of using it. It's never like they're using the vanilla one.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that. And Spacemax is a completely different approach. It changes the control scheme completely. It still has the old one embedded, and it doesn't override it completely, but you can use it in a completely different way. And it's a lot, because it's taking the model editing mode from VI, where you are either in editing mode or in a different mode to control things, and no longer controls something, but using a set of actions that you can, on the one hand, yes, you can memorize, but on the other hand, are very visual and very in your face when you need them. It provides that. It's probably one of the most advanced, not only editors, but environments to work in today, that allows you a lot of freedom. And tied up with something like org mode, it makes things really, really interesting. So if you haven't spun up Emacs for a while, download a copy, go to Spacemax, check their version of Emacs, basically play with it a bit. I think it's worth a dive. So
real quick, who remember what TSR stands for?
Ooh,
customer CSR, customer
TSR.
Oh, TSR.
Yeah.
Terminate and stay resident.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's
Terminate
a lot of things that we do now are doing it like this,
Yep.
but we don't call them that. I mean, isn't it? I mean,
The reason you don't call them that is because the OS provides that.
yeah,
The whole idea of
exactly.
TSR is
Yeah.
I'm going to hook up to your hardware
Yep.
interrupts, right? And I am going to decide, and I'm going to override your OS, and I am going to decide when I'm going to run. So yeah, today that won't fly, but today the operating systems allows us to run things in parallel.
Yeah.
TSR was amazing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
Walks there mentioned Sidekick. Sidekick was the
Yep.
ultimate SAR.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's also mentioning Outlook, and it just triggered my memory. Had a problem with people getting their email this week, in the beginning of the week. Ron sent an email and said, I upgraded. There was that vulnerability to, what was it that we talked about last week? And you were saying, Gal, that it's you have to be on the server to do it, access and all that. But anyway, he did some upgrade and he said, let me know if something is broken, so I'll fix it. I can't check everything. So I was getting all the email to my phone, and which uses what you call it, uses its own application to do POP. So I wasn't paying attention. In the afternoon, I'm sitting there and I'm on the computer, and I said, okay, let's delete some emails, and I'm not getting any emails. And I do send receive or refresh with EM client, which was about, I don't know, 5 years old. It's the original one that I bought. And it doesn't show you any errors or nothing. So I said, well, what happens if I send an email? So I try to send, and I'm looking, and the logs don't show any errors or anything. It doesn't. The logs don't even show you trying to connect to the POP server. So I'm sending an email, and sure enough, it registers, but I'm not getting it. I'm going to my mailbox on the server, and the message is there, but EM client is not getting it. And what in the hell is going on?
Did you pay the email transit tax?
Yeah, sure did. At that point, I'm getting an email from Marshall. He's saying, I can't get email. So I'm beginning to say, so I call Ron and I said, Ron, we have a problem. Blah, 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 blah. He said, okay, I'll look into it. I'm playing with it. And I decided to do away with it's always a good practice when you have a problem with email, do away with the security, with the encryption and all that. Go straight and see if that works. Sure enough, that worked. Bam, I got all my email. All right. So I called Ron and I told him, and he looked it up and what's going on and all this. And he said, oh, I see what happened. The program that sends the email to users is called Dovecot. And Dovecot had an update, and it stopped supporting any POP interaction prior to TLS 1.2. So I said, well, I must have an older one on EM client. So I called Marshall and I said, Marshall, which program are you using for email? Which Outlook? He said, 2007. I said, okay, try and do away with the SSL. And he did, and bam, he got all his email. So apparently, if this was weird because you could send mail but not receive mail. I had to upgrade my program to the latest version. It was like $30, and told Marshall, you're gonna have to leave your security off. But I don't like that you would do that. So I called Ron. I said, okay, Ron, what can we do that it will allow people to still have some? He said, well, I was reading a little bit more and I can set it up to the latest version of TLS that they don't say, don't use this. The earlier one, it says, do not use this. And at that point, it worked, but it's probably not going to work for long. So if you're having a problem receiving email and it's kind of weird, that may be the problem, that you're using an older version of the email utility. I mean, it took almost all day to finally figure out that that's what it is, and how to fix it, patch it so it will support temporarily anyway email exchange. But that's the first time that I had a program that would fail because of security, and I'm glad it did. I mean, obviously, EM client was using an old version of SSL, not even TLS. So it was a good lesson. All right. What else?
Much.
No, everything's working perfect. No problems. Oh,
All
wait.
right.
No, I've been chasing a Logitech error again. It happened for a while. I installed some new software, it went away, and now it's back. Missing DLL. And it's
So did the bull crap?
it did not. It uninstalled it, but I still get the DLL error, which leads me to believe that it's related to the searches I didn't specifically say cameras. It said it's the Logitech software updater, which I don't have. It's not installed as a separate program. So,
And you don't see anything else Logitech in the.
I had the new version of the camera manager, camera settings, which worked great. That fixed my issue with having my settings be reset to default every time I started
but I mean,
the camera.
you don't see any other Logitech in the menu of
program. No. The only things that were there were the new software I loaded.
So it must be tied to Windows then.
It is. That's what I found, but it's got to do with the Logitech drivers, and the Logitech puts an engine. It sits in the background that does. Anytime it detects a new Logitech product, it will go out and try to find the latest drivers.
So at what point do you get that error?
Every startup. Every time I either reset or start from scratch.
Yeah.
So you just have to. It just says not found, and.
Did you try to run register cleaner with CCleaner?
No, not yet. Not yet. What I did was I reinstalled both of the camera managers so I could go in using the uninstall software and cleanly uninstall, because the early camera manager, one that was Windows 7 and earlier, which was the only one that was available till recently, never uninstalled properly. And I was suspected that was the problem. So I reinstalled that, and I'm going to use the bulk crap uninstaller to do that, and hopefully that'll work properly. And every time I'd uninstall it from programs inside Device Manager, well, not in Device Manager, in Setup, it would fail. It would still be there. It would say it was done, but it would still sit there. So I'll figure it out. Just have to doodle. I'm suspecting, though, one place said that it's related to the keyboard. So we'll see what happens.
No?
I didn't actually load any Logitech software for this keyboard. It just worked. I plugged in the dongle and it just found it. I didn't load any utilities.
All right.
And what was the Linux distribution that I was playing around with here? Solus. I was looking for one that was the simplest, most friendly one I could put on to older laptops to distribute to people who needed machines. And I like Solus, although it's not a Windows type GUI, but it's very simple. And I'm playing around with it on an old Dell laptop, and I'm very happy with it. It's got a good update engine. It's already got most of the stuff that comes with. I think it's based on GNOME. Most of the ones I play with are based on Ubuntu. But lightweight, easy to install, and no issues with drivers.
All right.
Yeah, I played with Solus.
Yeah, but there were several. They had a couple of different versions, and then I looked at other ones that were also based on GNOME that were similar. I found one that looked just like Mac. Oh, it was great. And for some reason I had an issue with it and I took it off.
Well, it's that day. It's that time of day.
The party's over.
I know Gal got to run over to Sarid. So let's end this. Thanks, Spence.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sarid. Thanks, Sarid. Yeah, thank you,
Who is
Sarid.
that guy?
But thanks, Gal. What?
Who is that guy again?
Sarid?
No, this guy.
That's Gal.
You're having trouble identifying him.
Yeah. I know, he's dark. And he's red. Can't see his face.
Yeah, I took down the red a bit.
Yeah, I can see who.
All right. And good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie and Donna, Dina, Arlet and Micha, Eleanor, Lorid. Thanks everybody for turning to Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing, back up your hard drive, and update your virus scanner. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. I don't know why Nick did not show up today, but he's been real busy lately, but he's still doing his regular job, 6 to 9 a.m. on WAAV in Wilmington, 980 The Wave. And on Tuesday, Nick and Brian do the Infection Podcast, which is a program for survival game, 7 p.m. on Twitch. We'll be back next weekend. Bye, everybody.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.